Homeless woman saves a millionaire's daughter from the rain. She never knew he was the man who'd ruined her life. The rain fell like needles that night. Cold, relentless, echoing off empty sidewalks. Lena crouched beneath the crumbling awning of an old bakery, her thin blanket soaked through. The city had forgotten her name months ago. She had learned to move like a shadow, quiet, unseen. Her hands trembled around a cracked paper cup. She hadn't eaten since yesterday. Every car that passed sent a wave of dirty water across the curb, and still she whispered a quiet prayer. Just let the night end safely. Then came the sound, a tiny sob through the downpour. Lena blinked through the mist. A little girl stood near the edge of the street, clutching a small pink backpack, her yellow raincoat plastered to her legs. The child couldn't have been more than 6. She was crying so hard her voice broke against the rain. A horn blared. Tires screeched. Without thinking, Lena leapt forward. Her bare feet hit the slick pavement as she snatched the child back onto the sidewalk just as a black sedan tore past, spraying water like a wave. The girl's eyes were wide with terror. "Sweetheart," Lena said softly, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders, "where are your parents?" The child hiccuped. I lost my daddy. He told me to stay in the car, but I wanted to see the puppy across the street." Lena's chest tightened. "It's all right. You're safe now." She pulled the girl close. "Let's get you out of the rain." As they huddled under the bakery awning, a man's desperate voice cut through the storm. "Clara! Clara!" Lena turned. A tall man in a drenched black coat was sprinting down the street, panic twisting his face. His expensive shoes splashed through puddles, his breath visible in the cold. "Daddy!" the girl cried. He rushed forward and fell to his knees, pulling the child into his arms. "Oh my God! Clara, don't ever do that again." Then he looked up at the woman who'd saved his daughter. For a second, his gaze softened, then hesitated. She was soaked to the bone, hair clinging to her cheeks, clothes threadbare. "Thank you," he said quietly, voice thick with relief. "You saved her life." Lena managed a faint smile. "Just glad she's safe." He reached into his pocket for his wallet, but she stepped back. "Please, don't. I didn't do it for money." Their eyes met, hers tired but kind, his proud but shaken, and for a heartbeat, something unspoken passed between them. "Still," he murmured, "you deserve to be warm. There's a cafe around the corner. Let me at least buy you a meal." Lena shook her head. "Just take her home." She turned back into the rain, her silhouette dissolving into the fog before he could say another word. The man stood there, holding his daughter, rain dripping from his lashes. He whispered her name again, but his mind kept circling back to the woman who had vanished into the night. Lena had once worn heels instead of torn sneakers. 3 years earlier, she'd worked as a senior project manager for a tech company called Helix Systems, proud of every spreadsheet, every meeting, every late-night email. She'd believed loyalty mattered. She'd believed hard work would protect her. Then the merger came. Numbers didn't add up, reports went missing, and someone needed a scapegoat. Her name was signed at the bottom of a budget report she never wrote. Within days, she lost everything. Her job, her apartment, her savings. Her fiancé left, saying he couldn't build a future with someone who brought scandal. And the CEO who'd approved the termination? Alexander Grant. She had seen his signature on the dismissal letter, bold and indifferent. He never even met her face to face. Months blurred together, cheap motels, then shelters, then the streets. Each night she repeated her promise, "I'll start again. I'll find a way back." But every interview ended the same way. Polite smiles fading once they saw her record. "We'll be in touch," they said, never calling again. Now she kept her resume folded inside a damp notebook, carried like a relic of another life. 2 weeks after the rainstorm, Lena stood near a subway entrance, clutching her cup. The city smelled of wet asphalt and roasted chestnuts. She counted every coin she collected. It wasn't enough for a sandwich. Then she saw a familiar pink backpack across the street. Clara. The little girl was skipping beside a sharply dressed man carrying a briefcase. Even from a distance, Lena recognized his face, those defined features, the quiet confidence. Alexander Grant. For a moment, she froze. The man whose company's decisions had ended her career, the reason she'd spent 3 winters sleeping on concrete. He didn't see her. He was busy on his phone, guiding his daughter toward a sleek black car. Clara spotted her first. "Daddy, that's the lady who saved me." Alexander looked up sharply. His eyes widened as he recognized the woman in the worn coat standing under the subway awning. "Wait here, sweetheart," he told Clara and crossed the street. "Miss, I've been trying to find you," he said, breath clouding in the cold. "You disappeared that night." "I don't stay anywhere long," Lena replied quietly. "I owe you more than words." He paused. "Please come with me. I can get you something to eat." Her stomach twisted. Pride battled hunger. "I don't want charity." "It isn't charity. It's gratitude." The sincerity in his voice disarmed her. Against her instincts, she nodded. He led her to a corner cafe, bright, modern, out of place in her world. When the waiter approached, she shrank into her seat, aware of her ragged sleeves. Alexander noticed. "Order anything you want," he said gently. The smell of coffee and fresh bread was almost unbearable. She asked for soup. When it came, she tried not to devour it too quickly. He watched her with a strange mix of curiosity and guilt. "You said you don't stay anywhere long. Do you have family?" Lena's spoon paused midair. "Not anymore." "I'm sorry." "Don't be," she said softly. "Life happens." Clara swung her legs under the table, smiling. "Daddy, can she come to the park with us later?" Alexander smiled faintly. "Maybe another day, pumpkin." Then he looked back at Lena. "Would you accept a small job instead? I run a few foundations. We help people find housing and work. I could arrange something for you." Her eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Because you saved my daughter." "And if I hadn't?" He didn't answer. She gave a small, sad smile. "Then I'd still be invisible." 2 days later, a letter arrived at the shelter, hand-delivered, elegant paper. Inside, a note from Alexander Grant, offering a temporary position at his company's community outreach center. Lena almost didn't go. She told herself she was done trusting powerful men with smooth voices and promises. But hunger and exhaustion left little room for pride. On Monday morning, she stood outside the glass doors of Grant Industries, the same skyscraper where she'd once climbed the corporate ladder. She wore donated clothes and shoes that pinched, clutching the letter like armor. At the reception desk, the young assistant smiled politely. "Mr. Grant said to bring you up as soon as you arrived." Lena followed her into a private elevator, her pulse pounding. When the doors opened, Alexander was waiting beside a window that framed the skyline. He extended his hand. "Welcome, miss." "Just Lena," she said. He nodded. "You'll be coordinating our urban shelter program. Flexible hours, steady pay." "I don't understand. Why me?" "Because you know what the streets feel like," he said quietly. "And I trust you'll help us do better." Her throat tightened. No one had said the word trust to her in years. She nodded. "All right, I'll try." Weeks turned into months. Lena found rhythm again. Morning coffee, bus rides, purpose. She handled every file meticulously, spoke gently with every applicant, learned the faces of the cities forgotten. Clara often visited the office after school. The child's laughter softened the sterile corridors. She would run into Lena's arms with drawings, calling her Miss Lenny. Sometimes Alexander watched them from his office doorway, an expression unreadable. He began to notice the quiet things. How Lena offered coffee to the janitor before herself. How she stayed late filling forms for strangers. How her smile reached people who'd stopped believing in kindness. He found excuses to talk to her, to ask about reports that didn't need asking, to hear her voice. But one evening, as she placed a folder on his desk, something caught her eye, the framed award certificate behind him. Helix Systems, Merger Excellence, signed by Alexander Grant. Her breath caught. He turned at the sound. "Everything all right?" She forced a nod, her voice barely steady. "Yes, Mr. Grant, just a long day." When she left the office, her hands were trembling. The name Helix burned in her memory like a brand. "It's him," she thought. "He's the one who signed my dismissal, the man who ruined me." Sleep refused to come that night. Lena sat by her small rented room's window, city lights blinking through the fog. Her thoughts ran in loops. The merger, the dismissal, the day she lost everything. She remembered the signature on that final letter. Alexander Grant. The very same handwriting she had seen on the framed certificate in his office. The irony bit deep. She had saved his daughter. He had destroyed her life. By morning, she had decided she couldn't stay silent. When she entered his office later that day, Alexander looked up from his papers, smiling faintly. "Good morning, Lena." She didn't smile back. "I need to talk to you." Her voice trembled but held steady. "3 years ago, you were CEO of Helix Systems." He frowned, confused. "Yes, before the merger." "I worked there," she said. "In project management. I was fired after being blamed for falsified numbers in a report. A report I didn't write." He blinked, recognition dawning slowly. "Your last name, Harper. Lena Harper." He leaned back, his expression tightening. "I remember. That investigation. It was handled by compliance. I was told." "You signed the letter." Silence filled the room. The sound of distant typing from the outer office seemed unbearably loud. Finally, Alexander spoke, voice low. "If what you're saying is true, then I need to see those files again. I never meant—" "It doesn't matter," she interrupted softly. "What's done is done. I just needed you to know." Then she turned to leave. "Lena, wait." His voice carried something she hadn't heard before, genuine remorse. "Let me fix this." She stopped in the doorway, rain streaking the windows behind her. "You can't undo the years I lost," she said. "You can only do better with the ones ahead." And she walked out. That night, Alexander couldn't work. The memory of her voice haunted him. Not angry, just tired. He reopened the old Helix archives, calling in his legal team. "Pull every report from the quarter Lena Harper was dismissed," he ordered. Hours later, the truth emerged. The falsified data had come from a senior executive, long since promoted, and Lena had taken the fall to protect the merger's image. Alexander's stomach turned. He hadn't ruined her life intentionally, but his negligence had destroyed her just the same. At dawn, he stood at his window watching the first pale light break over the skyline. Somewhere out there, a woman who'd lost everything because of him had saved his daughter's life without hesitation. He made a decision. When Lena arrived at the outreach center that morning, she found Alexander waiting by the entrance, raincoat over his arm, eyes weary. "I owe you an apology," he said simply. "You were innocent. I checked the records myself. I was blind back then, more focused on numbers than people. I can't change the past, but I can make it right." He handed her a folder, a reinstatement offer, compensation, and a note from the board clearing her record. Lena stared at the papers, tears stinging her eyes. "Why are you doing this now?" "Because my daughter wouldn't be alive if it weren't for you," he said quietly. "And because you reminded me what decency looks like." She took a shaky breath. "I don't want your pity, Alexander." "It's not pity," he said. "It's gratitude and respect." For the first time, she saw him not as the distant CEO who'd crushed her career, but as a man, haunted, human, trying to mend what he'd broken. "Then let's start there," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Deal." Weeks passed, then months. Lena moved into a small apartment near the park where she often met Clara after school. The little girl adored her. She would bring flowers she'd picked from the garden, chatter about stories, and hold Lena's hand like family. Alexander began joining them, at first awkwardly, then naturally. They'd share quiet dinners, laughter over spilled cocoa, long walks under city lights. The walls between them softened, built not on guilt anymore, but on shared hope. One evening, as spring rain drizzled outside, Lena stood by the window of her new office, the one Alexander insisted she take as project lead of the foundation. He entered quietly, holding 2 mugs of tea. "You still like chamomile?" he asked. She smiled. "You remembered." He hesitated, then spoke. "I spent years believing success meant control. Then you showed me it means compassion." Lena looked at him, warmth flickering in her chest. "And you showed me forgiveness isn't weakness." For a long moment, neither spoke. The city hummed below, lights reflecting on the wet glass. Then Clara burst into the room, clutching a drawing. "Look, it's us." The crayon sketch showed 3 stick figures under a big yellow sun. Daddy, Lena, me. Lena felt her throat tighten. Alexander knelt beside his daughter, smiling. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," Clara beamed. "Now we're all together." Lena met Alexander's eyes. Something unspoken passed between them. A promise, fragile but real. He reached out and gently took her hand. "Sometimes," he said softly, "the rain doesn't wash everything away. Sometimes it helps things grow." She smiled through tears. "Then let's keep growing." Outside, the rain began again, soft, cleansing, full of light. And so the woman who had once been forgotten by the world found not only justice, but love. The man who had once measured life in profit discovered the worth of a single act of kindness. Sometimes, fate brings 2 broken hearts together, not to remind them of their scars, but to teach them how to heal. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and visit our channel for more tales that heal and inspire.